So here we are in the Wolseley, going for a little drive on a beautiful autumn day. I've been an engineer for as long as I can remember. When I was 13, I was rebuilding bikes in my dad's study. I've been mucking around with engines, cars, motorbikes forever. I've picked up loads of skills on the way, and I've learnt a load doing this project. To try and make this into an authentic Brooklands racer, I've had to look back at the history books, back at the old cars that were built in the day, back at the old Bugattis, some of the beautiful old Bentleys, and really reflected what they had done to the saloon cars then. Strip all the heavy bits off them, put a light body on with a boat tail, 2 seats instead of 4, cycle wings just to keep the weight down. So I then produced the idea for this Brooklands racer based on that kind of premise. Traffic jam, as per normal. British roads, what can you do, eh? This thing is so nice to drive. It's really smooth, it's really responsive, a bit loud. What's good about this car, actually, compared to, say, the other racers, is the size. You can easily and comfortably get 2 people in here. And it's perfectly comfy. There's loads of leg room, the seats are great, it's got some luggage capacity in the backs for weekend bags. So you can really go across Europe in it. Some of the other racers, you'll be lucky to get to the corner shop without having a stiff back. This is not this one. I think the most challenging part of the build was getting everything to work together smoothly. It's all well and good having loads of bits that you stick together. That doesn't mean it's going to work. So actually finalising each part to make sure it meshes beautifully with the next part. This little baby, obviously built in 39, it's now a 2.5 litre 6-cylinder. It's been gas flowed, lightened, balanced. It revs really quickly, but it's a long stroke engine, so it's got massive amounts of torque, and it only revs to 4,300 maximum. Running it in at the moment. It's got 4 gears, but I've managed to shoehorn in an overdrive, which makes it even easier at speed. So it can cruise at 70, no problem at all. Essentially, the car's running gear, brakes, engine, gearbox, steering are the same. So all the bits that made it ostensibly the Wolseley 1640 are still there, but it's just been changed into a racing car.
Well, we were aiming for one based on a Wolseley Hornet, which is quite a narrow chassis. This is based on a 1460, which is quite a big saloon car. So therefore we've got a chassis that looks good, but it's wide enough for 2 people.
It should do over a ton. I'm not sure if I want to do over a ton in it, but it should do it. Wolseley made cars from about 1920 to about 1960, and they changed throughout the war. And when they were, these ones for instance, were all saloon cars that came out of the factory. They were super reliable, quite heavy, not necessarily super quick, but they were quite fast. The police bought them, the army bought them. I think this was probably an army vehicle that was made 39 and probably used in the very early 40s. So one of the last ones made prior to the war. The suspension is, well, it's leaf spring, and then the leaf springs have got friction dampeners on them made by Hartford, which is the original 1930s company, which is basically brass and cedar washers squashed together with a big screw. It's as simple as that. But man, that noise is just beautiful. The engine actually is virtually silent. The exhaust, possibly not. I've always loved the era. 1920s, 1930s is a real cool era. We went to the Prescott hill climb, and we saw a couple of them there.
This is getting on for 10 years ago now, when we first saw Wolseley Hornets and the thing that Wolseley Brooklands cars are. We saw two arrive on trailers. One had a supercharger on it, the other one didn't. The one with the supercharger on it never got running properly. The red one that just had normal carbs was fine, and I sat in it. They
were so cool, we fell in love with them, and I just kept my eyes open for something on eBay.
And just the shape and the way it looked and the sound of it was just awesome. So we said, if ever we see one that we can do, ever we'll find one, we'll do it. And then not long after that, less than a year probably, Simon rang me one day. I found one on eBay, come and have a look. It's only down in North Oxford, which is like 20 miles away. And we got there super quick. And on the way there, my friends were saying, they've seen the same car on eBay, what do you think? So we got there really quick, and they were asking quite little money for it. Two old boys that had fallen out, they weren't going to do it together anymore. And it was just lying under a tarpaulin, just a chassis, four wheels and an engine, open to the elements, but we snapped it up.
I was so excited, I couldn't help it. I had to strip it there and then, and I literally took every nut and bolt off right then. Engine out, gearbox out, the whole lot was all over the garage. And then the hard work did start. I'll tell you what, 60 feels like 120 in this thing. Once that was done, we then sorted out the chassis. That's no mean feat. So it had to be modified to make sure we could do a boat tail, and it was a two-seater. I then rebuilt the engine, made it slightly larger, tuned it up, all new parts, lots of machining, lots of engineering, some great work done in that. I've got a big dirty cylinder block which needs cleaning, and I wasn't sure how to do it. It was covered in rust. It'd been knocking around someone's garage for years. So did some research, thought electrolysis is the way to go. You know, steel in one corner, battery through some salt mixture and get rid of all the rust. Wasn't entirely sure it worked, but it did. Set up this big tank, Heath Robinson, batteries and bits of metal, lots of bubbly stuff coming out of it. Cleaned it all off. It was immaculate. The gearbox was quite tricky because it was just goopy and horrible and quite knackered, so I had loads and loads of parts to do with the gearbox. Rebuilt the brakes and hubs. The hubs are solid aluminium. I had them made specially for the car. That means they're going to be stopping much better than they would have done originally. Once I built the rolling chassis up and it had got everything on it and I'd managed to start it, we then trailered it all the way to Brooklands Bodycraft, who hand rolled the whole body in the old style with the English wheel, which is quite a skill in itself. That took quite a few months actually. Then it went from them, we shipped it across to the paint sprayers, and they took the whole body apart, every single piece came off, and they resprayed the whole body in separate pieces. And so when I got it back, I got loads of separate pieces back of body, which I had to fit to the car. So I had to build it again. Then did the electrics, which were quite modern actually, the electrics. And then the instrument cluster, which I had to sort of cut out holes in bits of cardboard and work out exactly where I wanted everything to go. I then looked at the trimming and I found a really great place to do all the leather work. Measured it all up, made out templates, and had all the leather done, and that's come out really well. Last thing was the exhaust, which is a hand-built, hand-bent specialist exhaust just for this car. It wouldn't fit anything else. And here it is. Driving this Wolseley is astounding. It touches every single sense in the body. You are completely wrapped up, and you're just part of the scenery. It feels like you're in it, properly in it. you're shooting through the countryside, ripping through bends, and you're kind of, the car is part of you. Your hands are the front wheels and your feet are the back wheels, and you can feel everything. I'll tell you what you do get, really good all-round vision. You kind of need the goggles. The air screens are quite cool, and they keep some stuff off you, but once you get up to speed and you start motoring, goggles are pretty important. You don't want anything going in your eyes. When you drive a normal car, you're in this little cocoon and you go along and you listen to the radio, and then you get there. With this thing, you're in the open 100% of the time. If it rains, you get wet or you put an umbrella up. It is just crazy. If you're looking at a mountain, it looks beautiful, but that's not the same as climbing it. And once you get to the top, there's that incredible feeling. This is the car. Once you're in it and you're driving it, it is the feeling. It feels amazing. I was hoping when I built it that it would be good fun to drive. I never in a million years thought it would be as good as this. Some of the problems I've had to solve doing this was the steering wheel and the suspension. So I wanted to bind it in string, because that's what they used to do in the 20s and 30s, for grip, for making sure you didn't crash it, so you could hang onto the steering wheel, and because there's no power steering. And so I had to learn how to bind with string and make it pretty with a knot. And I did that when I was watching telly in the evenings. It took days, but yeah, that was one of the problems. Despite the fact there's no power steering, I've got stacks of grip on the steering wheel because of the binding, and it's really light when you roll it. If you're stationary, it's bloody heavy. When you're building a pre-war car like this, you need to know people in the trade. You need to know all those other duffers like me who are messing around in their garage and old stuff. And I've managed to find them all over the country. I've had to scour and research and try and find these people. For instance, the engine in this originally would have been a 1600. Now, I've managed to find a 2.2, exactly the same engine, just a slightly different model. I was looking everywhere for this engine, found it in Australia. So I got hold of the guy in Australia, we chatted for ages on the internet and on the phone, and eventually worked out how I was going to get it back here, bought it, got the engine back. I still got the original engine to do, well, you know, when you're mecking around, you've always got to fix things, haven't you? So I've got another one to do in the shed. Takes a bit of concentration, I tell you. On a bumpy road, woohoo! The thing I like most about the car, I think, is the whole look. The look is absolutely in keeping with the 30s racers, and the feel. The actual driving sensation when you're in it, second to none. For me, the most memorable part of the build was actually having all the bits in the chassis, including the engine, the wheels, everything set up, no body, nothing. But it was the start. The very first time I turned the engine over and it fired up. There was flames spitting out the exhaust that was really, really loud, because there wasn't an exhaust, it was just the manifold coming out. There was a bit of an old battery, some wires to an old pump. There was a tube going halfway across the garage to a petrol tank so I could get some fuel in it. And it fired up and ticked over straight away. It was great. I've taken the car to a couple of they're kind of bike night, old car night at pubs, and the response is off the scale. I think the fact that we've had it so long, we're not blasé about it, but it's kind of, when people see it for the first time, they just go mad. It's kind of a bit of a shock that people are so interested in it. They are kind of rolling. I drive down the road and people are waving and shouting, and it's bizarre. It's kind of quite intoxicating. It's great fun. You can't sneak somewhere. You can't pop out for a bottle of milk. You just get hounded, which is kind of fun.
the best reaction I got was from Henry Cole and his mate Skid. They build motorbikes together, and actually Henry Cole and Sam Lovegrove built a Riley version of this car themselves in green, and I did see the picture of it when they finished it, and it was a little bit inspiring, but I think ours has turned out better, and they agreed. It has turned out better because ours has got more room in it than theirs. It's a wider chassis, so really good for two people to sit alongside each other.
The accelerator, you just touch it and the engine barks at you. It's really quick revving. There's something that only revs to 4,300. It's crazy.
So the plan is to have it on the road as often as we can, do some tours, go to some nice places, do a few hill climbs.
I want to race it. I don't want to blow it up. So we're not going to be in the top 3, but hopefully we'll be competing. That's probably a better way of putting it.
We're going to take it to Angoulême next September, which is Circuit de Rampard, which is around the streets of Angoulême in France, with lots of other cars of this kind of ilk. And we're taking it over next September. Might drive it all the way there, we might trailer it, we'll see.
There'll be probably a couple of racetracks, maybe a Le Mans at some point, and definitely going to Goodwood in it. In fact, I think I'll be doing a track day
Come on,
Goodwood
baby.
in it, maybe.
One thing you find with a car like this is everybody gets out your way. They see it, they don't know quite what it is, they hear it and they're frightened of it. It's great.
I've found some proper clothing to go with it, some correct era stuff, so I've got the kind of Second World War boiler suit, I've got the flying jacket, crazy old leather hat with goggles. Even my wife's got a funky hat from the 20s and a fur stole, so we're going to look the part when we're out in it.
I've been very successful in finding some clothing that match the car, some period clothing. Got a flying jacket, and I found 2 pairs of overalls that fit me at the Goodwood Revival on one of the retail outlets there, which is owned by an Antiques Roadshow expert. So I got chatting to him, told him what I was looking for, and he called his sister over and she pulled out 2 pairs of overalls that fit me perfectly the first time trying them on. Just brilliant. I got some badges, had them stitched on, so yeah, I look the part. All the gear and no idea, definitely. Lovely day, sun shining. Roads are a little bit greasy.
There's lots of lovely little things I love about this car. One of them is the timing clocks. Used to use them for track timing. I've got a bit of a pastiche of that. Mine's a bomb clock and a stopwatch from the Second World War. Utterly useless, but fabulous.
Favourite thing about the vehicle is the 6-cylinder engine and the sound it makes going along in 3rd and 4th gear is just amazing. It's got overdrive, so it cruises comfortably. It's a nice place to sit because there's plenty of room for 2 people to sit alongside each other. It's not cramped. Loads of leg room, and the heat off the engine keeps you warm, which is nice. But the main thing is how it looks and how it sounds. For me, is just perfect.
And there's some bits I absolutely love. The Le Mans petrol cap, the leather straps over the bonnet, and the Wolseley badge at the front.